Okay, let's do a quick little demo here in Bridge of, well, we'll go all the way through Photoshop for the assignment for shooting the architectural assignment and what you might be looking for in terms of, what to look for when you're on location shooting this, as well as what you're going to do afterwards in Photoshop to make the composite work and believable. So let's take a look at these images so far. So this is what these are files that a student did last year or maybe the year before, and let's just take a look at these files to start with. So student's gone out, and I can see from the EXIF data down here. What time is this one? So this one is shot at September 26th at 7:10 in the evening. So I can tell from that, let me just make this one a little bit bigger. I can tell from that the sun looks like it's kind of overcast. So the sun's probably gone behind a cloud. It has direction of light, but it doesn't really have much contrast. It's not very, no, it's not very direct. You can see that the grass and stuff looks a little bit underexposed. Ideally, you're going to have the sun out and you're going to have the sun shining on the building like it does in the one right beside it. That's a little bit more dramatic. It's a little bit more appealing. Not to say that this wouldn't work, but this exposure is too dark. It's going to need a lot of work before you get to even the stage of using it in the composite. So I'm going to skip that one and we'll go to the next one here. I like this one. Now, this one's shot 7:14, so it's shot 4 minutes later. And you can see there's a dramatic difference. Let me just make these smaller. There's a dramatic difference between this building and this building. This one looks a lot more vibrant. It's got a lot more contrast. It's got a lot more depth. Just think overall that's a better image. And now I can see when I go to the next one, this image here, 7:14, 7:20. So this one's shot 6 minutes later. Or sorry, was it 7:14? Well, whatever. Anyways, this is shot a few minutes later. And you can see that the sun is now starting to go down because I can see the sort of eclipse, as it were, on the building from other buildings in the area that are now sort of encroaching on the face of that. Now this one down here, so that's that building. So that one we said shot at 7:20. Come to the next one. I like this one for the sky. This is that sort of sweet spot of shooting the sky. The lights inside aren't all that bright yet, but the sky is very dramatic here. I quite like this one. So I think this would be my choice for the sky. And this one up here would be my choice for the building. So I've got my building shot, my sky shot, and then if I come over to, let's see these last two here. Yeah, one of these two would probably work for the night sky. And I'm going to guess that this one's already had an adjustment done to it. So, okay, so we were here for the Twilight shot was done at 7:29. And here 20 minutes later, it's quite dark out. I wouldn't say it's pitch black, but it's quite dark out, and we now have the light emanating from the building. And that's what's key for this. You want to have the lights emanating from the inside of the building so the building has a little bit of life to it. Are all the lights on? No, but we'll work with this right now in terms of this is what's available to us. So let me just shrink these down a little bit again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go with this image for my exterior, this image for my sky, and then this image for my lights. So if I select these three images in Bridge, I'm just going to hold down the Command key and then select these. I can tell by this sliding key up at the top here, these have already been adjusted. So I don't know if this is left over from maybe what I did last year or not, but let's have a look. So I'm going to open these in Camera Raw and just see what they need in broader terms. So if this is going to be my, let's say this is my daylight one. So probably what I'll do here, I would say this is optional because if your exposure is sort of bang on, you won't need to do this. But let's just say for this one here, just to take it a step further, I'm just going to make my mouse a little bit, my cursor bigger here. I'm just going to brighten up the grass just a bit. That's too much. So let me just pull that slider back down. Somewhere around there. That might work well. This second one, this is the one we're using for the sky. I like that. I think that's pretty good. If anything, maybe I just go a little bit over the top and I change the saturation of the sky a little bit. Do I want to brighten it up a little bit? Maybe just a tad. And then this one here, the third image, this is going to be for the lights of our building. I think this one's probably okay as is. We'll take out that airplane at the end, but the shadows, we'll open them up just a tad. Highlights, you want to be careful with the highlights because if I push the highlights too much, you see how the windows start to blow out? somewhere in between there. Now, ideally, as I say, you'd have more lights on this side of the building because this is looking a little bit sparse over here. But let's say that's good for now. So I'm going to say done. And what it's going to do is it's going to apply those changes in Camera Raw to those 3 images. Why didn't I just open them from Camera Raw? Well, I'm not going to open them from Camera Raw because I want to use Photoshop to assemble them. So I'm going to come back up. I'm still in Bridge. I'm going to come back up to Photoshop, and I'm going to go Load Files into Photoshop Layers. And what does that do? Well, what that does is it makes one file from all 3 images. So it's going to take those 3 images and place them together in one file, and it's going to align them on top of each other. Now, if the camera hasn't moved, we should have 3 images in perfect alignment. Now, I prefer to have the darkest image on top and the lightest image on the bottom. Your workflow might be different as well. I'm showing you what I would be doing here in shooting this. But your Photoshop instructor might have a little bit of a different appeal. But a few other things I'll mention about the actual capture of this. This image is a little bit crooked. It's best if you can. Most of the modern cameras will have a built-in level in the back of it so that when you set it up on your tripod, and you do need a tripod for this, when you set it up on your tripod, you want to make sure that your camera is level. Using the internal mechanism that'll tell you when you're true. Because see here, I can see from this image here, let me just pull a ruler out here, that this isn't straight. This post, if I take this post as being straight, it's leaning too much to the left. So it's already a little bit askew. The other thing that I would do, again, this might not be available for everybody at all times, but I would probably get a little bit more elevation on this, because if we're slightly higher up, these areas here with the mounds on the ground, like these elevated areas, they won't be so predominant. And pardon me, if they're not so predominant, it's going to show more of the building and less of the foreground. And I think that'd probably be preferable if the building clientele or whoever is the client, they're probably going to want to see that. The other thing I probably would have done in this image is maybe just scooch a bit more over to the left, because see this here? This is the signage for the building, and it's kind of lost. It's just too small in terms of scale to everything else. What I would say works with this one here, this tree looks a bit dead, but it's probably better to have the tree without leaves if this is the only vantage point available, because you can see through it. Ideally, you want the trees to look alive and hopefully not in your way, but you can't always control that, so you sort of got to take what you can get. But I would say this is probably, it's a good start for this. The second image of the Twilight, again, I'm not really looking at anything here but the sky. And Photoshop does have a great new feature in it called sky replacement. Where is that? Edit image. I can't remember where this is. I've used it only once or twice because it's just in the new select sky, and you can actually change the sky, and there's all kinds of options in there. I'm not going to touch on that for this assignment. Your Photoshop instructor can do that. But I like the sky in this. I like that gradation. I like the change in hue from this sort of bluish to kind of a little bit of a magenta color through the bottom, and that's all I'm looking at from this image. So this is a nice sky. And then in my last image, this is just for the lights, and these aren't too bright. If you overexpose it too much with the wrong f-stop, you can get that sort of starburst effect that's a little bit overpowering. But I think this one's actually okay. So let me just see here. Yeah, I think we'll go with that one for the lights. So if I change my blending mode on this is the easiest way, I think, to do it. If I change my blending mode to lighten or to overlay, I'm going to start to see some of those lights in there. But what else do you notice on this image? If I zoom in here a little bit more. The building looks like the camera has moved just slightly, because you see that little ridge on the top? They're not perfectly aligned. So the camera's been bumped at some point in the exposure. And you can go in and move that, just get the move tool and nudge it back down into place. That's probably closer there. I'm just using the arrow keys up and down. But ideally, you're not going to have this bumped when you're shooting, because even though that looks aligned at the top now, it's probably going to look a little bit fuzzy or double ghosted or something at the bottom. Because you don't usually just bump the tripod up or down. You're usually bumping it up, down, sideways, left to right, right to left, whatever. So when you move it, It's usually not a simple adjustment, but I think that'll work okay for this one here. So let me come back out to this. So yeah, I don't really mind that actually. I think those will be all right. So the other thing that we want to do when we bring all of this together, let me just pull the opacity on that down a bit more, is to add a layer mask to this. And again, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. This will be done in your Photoshop class, but you can add a layer mask to this and then just sort of retouch out the front of the building. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Again, you'll do this in your other class, so I'm not going to get into that too much. But let's just say I took this part of this out. Is it too much or too little? Well, this is sort of where you're sort of tweaking this to taste a little bit. Again, forgive the crudeness of my brush strokes here, but I just want to sort of do this to sort of give you an idea of what is possible as opposed to creating a finished result. So you'll go in here, I don't know, you could use the pen tool or be a little bit more exacting than I'm doing here. But anyways, I don't mind that. So let's just say that was my preferred one there. Make sure I get all of that area out. And again, you can add more of this if you want. Like if you wanted to see more of the grass from the bottom one, you could add a little bit more to it. But you sort of got to compromise it between it looking like daylight and it looking like nighttime. This actually might be, maybe that's a little bit too much for the daylight and not enough for the actual sky. So you're going to sort of tweak that to taste. The other thing that you can do, you can totally mask out the lights on this if you want and just have the light showing. Depends on the complexity of the image. Here, you could go in and cut around all of those lights if you wanted to, but I think using either an overlay or a lighten mode is probably, darken that up, brighten that up a little bit more. If I go to lighten, brighten that up, that's too much. Anyways, as I say, you're sort of you're tweaking this to taste. So if I go to use the lighten mode, bring that up to 60%, yeah, I don't know. Do you prefer that? Maybe you do. So I'm going to say that that's okay for that. Again, do I want more of that sky showing? No, I think that's okay. I think that, if anything, maybe I would darken that down a little bit. And again, you can come back into the mask and either adjust this to make it lighter or darker if you wanted to. But the other key thing about fixing these afterwards, let me make this a little bit smaller again, get rid of this ruler. What I would really appreciate you taking care of is making sure that the building is perfectly straight. And again, this one's not. It's shot too much too much out of level, so it looks like it's leaning left to right. So most buildings you're going to find, especially if you're shooting a corner of it, a corner is ideal when you're picking your composition, because if you shoot into a corner, you're going to have a little bit of perspective already working for you. See how the building fades away this way? It decreases. This is, it has more of a three-dimensional property to it. Now, what we're going to do is using the transform tool. Again, you're going to do this in your Photoshop class, but I prefer to use the distort tool. And you have to make sure that when you're doing this, you've selected all three layers. Sorry, let me do that again. The transform tool, and I'm going to use distort. And all I'm going to do is just pull the sides out here to ensure that it aligns with those straight up and down arrows. And again, you can use this one to shift the whole building left to right, because once you pull on one side of this, you kind of got to go back and pull on the other side because it's pulling it away from you. And if you pull it too much, it'll look a little bit squat, and you can sort of just pull it upright a little bit. So without getting over the top in terms of the Photoshop work on this, I would say that's probably pretty close given where we started with this. Let me get rid of these rulers here. Last things I would suggest doing would be just taking out that airplane in the top. Just, select that, just rubber stamp that out. But, that's not bad. I'd say that's, you're going to clean up the masking and do a lot better. But that's not bad. The vantage point on this one, it's okay. I would, maybe a little bit higher would be better. Picking a building that doesn't have so many trees and stuff in the foreground, or at least have them not obliterate the view of the building is important. So I think maybe that's something else that could be done here. But I think we're 50% of the way here. Cleaning up the masking, and then maybe you want to go in and retouch some of this little stuff out, darken up the asphalt so it looks a little bit cleaner, stuff like that. But anyways, I think this is, as I say, this is 50% of the way there, and it's done through the 3 exposures that we started with before sunset with the sun on the building, at sunset where the sky is the most dramatic, and then after sunset when we have the lights on the building that are sort of teaming out. Again, you won't be able to do this with the relationship between the building and the lights here. You won't be able to do that just by bracketing. So don't even try it. And here it's literally a 20-minute. I think we said there was maybe 20 minutes between these. So it's not like you have to camp out here for an entire weekend to capture this. So that's it. Good luck, and we'll talk about this. Or if you have any questions or comments, just let me know, and I'll do my best to make sure that you guys are on the right track.